Well, hello again, everybody. Sectional semifinal night around the state of Indiana, and I'll start with my game tonight. I had Brebeuf and Roncalli out here at Brebeuf, and Roncalli wins at 55-27. And really, it was a story of the start of the game. I thought really kind of set the tone. Brebeuf drove down at a long drive, about a 15-play drive down to the 1 yard line. Got to the 1 yard line on second and goal, and Roncalli able to turn Brebeuf away, and then drive down the field an 99-yard drive in 18 plays. Was sort of aided by a roughing the punter call, but really the story was the ground game of Roncalli tonight. Roncalli able to run for 371 yards on the ground and 78 passing yards tonight. Zach Dozier, he did the majority of the damage for Roncalli. 172 on the ground, 23 carries, also one touchdown. Colin Ash, the quarterback, who had a big game out here last time they played in the kind of the Hurricane Remnants game from a few weeks ago. He had 159 yards rushing and 3 touchdowns. Those two really finished off runs, I thought, all night. Always falling forward, always kind of running through people, and just kind of a tone-setting start to this game. Like I said, the defense was able to get a stop on fourth down. Right at the 1 yard line there. C.J. Harris a couple times looked like he's almost about to cross the goal line, and Roncalli apparently able to keep him out, and kind of lead from there. It was tied 7-7. It was 14-13 at one point. But then at the end of the half, Roncalli able to get a touchdown to go up 21-13. And then really kind of a screw up on Brebeuf's part. They can't move the ball. They have to punt, and left enough time on the clock for Rudy Shotley was able to return a punt 34 yards to the Brebeuf 28 and set up a field goal that Brebeuf kind of just gave away 3 points there. So it's and Gavin Louthane hit it from 45. Really good kick. Not like they just handed it to him. It was a good kick, but on the same wavelength there, it's just you can't allow that in a game where you're just struggling to stop the other team anyway. And it ends up at 24-13 at halftime. Roncalli gets the ball to start the second half, goes right down the field again and scores on a Colin Ash touchdown run. So 31-13, and at that point, Brebeuf's playing catch up, and they do that pretty well. I mean, Maverick Geske, by the way, man, he throws a great football. I mean, he's a heck of a quarterback, and he really, still was able to get some things done through the air. But you really felt like Roncalli, even though Geske ends up with 23 for 38 for 289 and 4 touchdowns, which is a really good day. Obviously, those are great numbers, but it felt like they did a pretty good job of limiting things. The longest pass tonight was 39 yards, a touchdown pass to Taylor Clark earlier in the game, and so they kind of kept things in front for the most part. They limited C.J. Harris to 60 yards rushing on 13 carries, which that was very important as well. And then, like I said, there was just no stopping Roncalli's offense on the ground, especially. And Jaden Buchanan also threw. He came in. He was 4 for 5 passing for Roncalli for 78 yards and 2 touchdowns. And Roncalli, I think, what they punt? Ended up punting, I think, once all night. So no punts. The only punt was by Brebeuf, and that was the one that set up that late field goal in the first half. So no punts at all for Roncalli. Seemed like any time they needed some yards on the ground, they could get it where they wanted to. Ends up with 26 first downs on the night, and overall 449 yards to 361 for Brebeuf. So, kind of the backdrop again of this game was, you have to kind of mention a little bit of distraction this week for Danville with the Danville game last week. I'm not getting into all that again, but Brebeuf, had a weird ending to last week, to say the least. Danville thought they should be playing this game. There was a few fans that showed up with Danville won shirts on, sitting on the Roncalli side tonight, and it was just kind of a just a weird thing, basically. Again, the details you can read about how that game transpired. I talked to Matt Geske, the Brebeuf coach, about that a little bit after the game, and I'll have more coming about all that. But yeah, it was definitely a distraction. I don't know that it had much impact on the actual outcome or anything like that tonight, but definitely a thing where just very unusual how that game ended, and Danville felt like they should be playing in this game, and obviously they weren't. Brebeuf was playing in it, and Roncalli the better team, and Matt Geske said that as much. A very good team Roncalli has. Seems like they're better than when they played here a few weeks ago. Hard to assess that game necessarily. It was just such a weird, windy, rainy game, and kind of played to Roncalli's favor. And you thought tonight maybe, with the weather being better, Brebeuf would be able to throw the ball a little bit better, and they did for sure. But they still couldn't stop the run, and that's the biggest thing. They struggled. Brebeuf struggled all year defensively with those things, and it came to fruition again tonight. So again, Brebeuf wins it. Roncalli wins it, 55-27, and will play next week against Chittard. And as of right now, I don't know if I remember where that game will be played, but regardless, that was a 9-3 game earlier this season. Chittard won it, but Roncalli was right in that game, and I think again they're a better team right now than they were at that point. So that'll be a fun one in Class 4A. Really some title aspirations type of game, but you also have New Pal in there in Class 4A, and they won tonight. So let's just go through 4A while we're talking about 4A. Chittard beat Mooresville 42-15 tonight, so that sets up next week's game with Roncalli. Elsewhere, Sectional 23, Martinsville rolls to a 49-13 win over Silver Creek, and then Greenwood beats Bedford North Lawrence 48-24. So Martinsville and Greenwood will play next week for the Sectional 23 championship. Martinsville, a very heavy favorite in that sectional and a very good team this year. I saw them a couple weeks ago in their only loss of the year against Plainfield, but that Martinsville team, should have a chance to play probably Evansville Rights, I would think, in Sectional 24 later on in the regional. So that'll be one to watch. But again, Chittard Roncalli will be the Sectional 22 championship. Greenwood and Martinsville in Sectional 23. And then Sectional 21, Pendleton Heights beat Greenfield Central 31-21 tonight. I would say that's a minor upset, although I know Greenfield had some people out in that game that were key. And New Pal rolls 41-7 over Yorktown in Sectional 21. So next week will be New Pal and Pendleton Heights. And Lebanon also a big win tonight over Logansport, 35-28. So in Sectional 20, Lebanon will play Huntington North. So that's kind of the local scene in Class 4A. Again, Lebanon, Huntington North, New Pal, Pendleton Heights next week. Chittard Roncalli and Martinsville against Greenwood will be your sectional championship games. And now let's jump up to 6A. Some good games tonight. Zionsville scored late and then beat Carmel on a 2-point conversion, 29-28. Carmel led that game late. Zionsville scored, and then I believe got the 2-pointer from Eugene Hilton to win that game. And they'll play Westfield next week. Westfield a 49-0 winner over Harrison of Lafayette. And then in Sectional 4, Fishers jumped out to a huge lead on Noblesville, goes on to win 31-21. HSC, I'm very surprised by this score, beats Homestead 20-14. Thought that would be, I didn't think that would be a close game at all based on what we've seen out of HSC and Homestead. Homestead must be a little bit stronger right now. But Fishers HSC will play next week for the Sectional 4 championship. And again, kind of looking through here, I know Fishers had jumped out to a big lead, like I said, in that one. And I think John Anthony Hall had a touchdown catch early in that game to kind of get Fishers going on their way to that win. So, just looking through here. Caught an 80-yard touchdown pass from Caden Hill early in that game. And actually, Fishers led that 28-0 at halftime. So, Noblesville made a comeback in the second half to make it 31-21, but not nearly enough. John Anthony Hall had ended up with 5 catches for 136 through the air, and tough year for Noblesville, which finishes 2-8. Had a lot of close losses. This one wasn't necessarily that close throughout, but ends up being a win for Fishers. So again, Fishers HSE both advance in Sectional 4. Sectional 5, Brownsburg and Avon, 21-13. Brownsburg beats Avon. That game was 7-0 at halftime, and Brownsburg never trailed in that one, but had to fight off a tough Avon team that had been playing better at the end of the season. And then the opponent next week for Brownsburg will be Ben Davis. Ben Davis had to come from behind. They were down to Pike 24-21. Ben Davis comes back and wins 34-24 over Pike. And I know Mark Zachary sounded like he had a crazy good game tonight. I don't have all the stats yet in front of me. I know he had an interception, possibly 2 interceptions, and a lot of receiving yards in that game. So check it out at IndyStar.com. We'll have more on that game as well, and I'm sure he'll be up for a Player of the Week for sure. But a big game there in Brownsburg. Ben Davis next week, man. It seems like those teams always end up playing each other in the sectional. That'll be the case again next week, and I believe that game will be at Ben Davis, if I read that right earlier. So again, that's the sectional 5 matchup, and man, this 6A is just 6A is crazy this year. I don't know, who to pick in some of these games. It's just going to be wide open this year, I think, and that's just kind of the way it is. It's the way it's been. Cathedral rolls in sectional 6, 36-0 beats North Central, and Lawrence North in a game that was closer throughout, but they pull away to beat LC 40-9. So another monster game next week, LN and Cathedral. That'll be fun. Sectional 6, I'll probably be covering that game, I would think. Not sure yet, but that will be a fun one. Cathedral, Lawrence North. I covered that game last year. Cathedral handled them 20-3, I believe the final was, but very different LN team this year. 10-0, ranked number 1, and Cathedral, we know how good they are year in and year out. So to see if we have any numbers from those games have come in yet as far as individual stuff. Isavion Moore had 4 touchdowns for the Wildcats, and Breck Mallory had a blocked punt. Not much else on that game just yet as far as the stats and whatnot. But I know Cathedral, Xavier Dangerfield, I saw, did have another big game for Cathedral in that one over North Central, which, man, North Central just really has not been able to get anything going as far as the win-loss. I think that'll happen next year. The schedule should lighten up a little bit for the Panthers. But, Dangerfield had 76. Jalen Bonds came back tonight. He had 5 carries for 55 yards. And Cameron Course had 135 through the air. That'll be a battle. Can't wait to see what happens there. LN and Cathedral next week. That one will be promises to be very good next week in Sectional 6. Sectional 7 ends up Perry Meridian beats Southport 42-12, and Warren rolls over Tech 39-0. No surprises there in those games. Perry Meridian will play Warren next week for the title. And then Franklin Central, one of the big games tonight, beats Columbus North 21-17. So Franklin Central, big win. That's that one will put them into next week's game against Center Grove. Center Grove beat Jeffersonville 72-7. So Franklin Central Center Grove will be the matchup next week in Sectional 8. And let's see, moving on down to 5A locally, Decatur Central beat Whiteland 28-14. So Decatur moves on. We'll play Plainfield next week. Plainfield a big winner, 63-8 over Anderson. So Decatur Central Plainfield, that game could be potentially a state title. Whoever wins that could make the state finals. Long way to go, obviously, but those teams both very good, and that should be a fun game. Franklin beat Columbus East 42-17, and East Central beats Seymour 35-0. So Franklin will play East Central next week for the Sectional 14 title. Covered 4A already. Moving on down to 3A, Guerin Catholic pulls away late. They beat Hamilton Heights 44-27. And Tri-West, an absolute battle with Cascade tonight, 37-35. Heard about that game a little bit from our Our guy Clark Wade was out there. He'll have all the highlights from that one. But Tri-West holds on and beats Cascade 37-35 in a wild one in Sectional 29. So Guerin Catholic Tri-West, that should be a great game in Sectional 29 next week. And that game, I believe, is at Guerin, but you can check all that IndyStar.com. I'm not sure on where these games are just yet. Sectional 37 locally again in Class 2A. Actually, Lafayette Central Catholic start with that one. Beat Western Boone tonight, 28-20. So top-ranked LCC gets a battle as expected from Western Boone. LCC wins and moves on. Sectional 37, Monrovia 42-0 over Covenant Christian, and Lutheran beats Ritter 49-7. So the train rolls on for Lutheran. We'll play Monrovia next week for the title. They dominated Monrovia last time those two teams met. Sectional 38, a couple shutouts. LaPel beats Centerville 21-0, and Triton Central beats Shenandoah 24-0. So LaPel versus Triton Central should be another really good one in Sectional 38. And in 1A, moving on down the list here, Sheridan beats Clinton Prairie in Sectional 46, 48-20, and Cloverdale beats Tenley 34-6. I believe those are our only local teams in 1A. So Cloverdale will play Sheridan next week for the title in Sectional 46 in 1A. So that should about do it for tonight. Again, my game, Roncalli rolls 55-27 over Brebeuf. Check out everything else, IndyStar.com, and appreciate you hanging here with me, and we'll have plenty more, like I said, coming up soon. Thank you.